Hey everybody, my name is Trevor Grimes and welcome back to another episode of The Content Crowd. The Content Crowd is a podcast where we explore what makes content resonate, from creative habits, point of view shifts, to behind the scenes breakdowns, so that listeners and also me can stop mimicking and start making something that actually matters. Before we get started, I want to talk about the sponsor of this show, which is Scrappy ABM. Scrappy ABM helps you build repeatable account-based plays and teaches you how to own them so that you can bring ABM in-house when you're ready. To learn more, visit scrappyabm.com. Hey everybody, we're welcome back. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode, another solo episode where it's just me. I don't have any guests because I'm currently on paternity leave. So you are just going to, get to listen to me for 20 or 30 minutes. I know. It's sad we don't have the typical amazing experts that we usually have, but I promise this is still going to be a valuable episode and you will get something out of it. So, let's see. All right. So today we're going to be diving into something that I see trip up even the best marketers or creators or founders or whoever that's out there trying to create content. And it's really around like what does and doesn't make content resonate. So if you've ever hit post on something that you've really believed in, only for it to flop, which we've all been there. On my last episode, I talked about how basically everything I post is a flop in some way. But anyway, you're not alone. Like I've been there, clients have been there. I'm sure we all have put a lot of heart and soul into something that just didn't go out. So in today's episode, I'm going to break it down. So we're going to talk about what makes content not resonate. Sorry. So today's episode, we're going to break down why most content doesn't connect or resonate, the silent killers of resonance, and how to fix them. And whether you're writing a blog post or a podcast or posting on LinkedIn, we're going to talk about how to make content resonate. So why doesn't most content work? Well, the truth is, most people won't say this out loud, but the problem isn't really distribution, it's resonance. Yes, like distribution plays a huge part of that. You have to make sure that the stuff you're writing is getting in front of the right audience, but sometimes we don't have a control over that. If you're posting on LinkedIn, you don't really have a ton of control over distribution. Your distribution method is LinkedIn, but you can't really unless you're running ads, you can't really control the audience that it's going to. So we have to really make sure that the content resonates. So even if you have a really smart strategy with how you're wording it and you're putting social posts together and you're making a pretty carousel or whatever you're using, it won't work if the content itself isn't making the people feel anything. So what kills resonance? Let me walk you through some of the three most common culprits that I see. So one, like you're writing for everyone. That's the most common is we're not exactly sure who we're writing for, so we're kind of writing for everyone. You're teaching and not showing, and you're skipping the messy middle. And I'll get into those a little bit. We're going to unpack those, but we're going to dive right into the first issue, which is you're writing for everyone. And I think this is more common than what people think. There's a really interesting image that I've seen going around LinkedIn that has like a comparison between Prince Charles and Ozzy Osbourne. And they're both male, both born in 1948, both raised in the UK, both married twice, both live in a castle, both are wealthy and famous. But I would argue that if you're writing content for Ozzy versus writing for Prince Charles, you're writing for everyone in that sense. You think you know who you're writing to, and you really don't. So, and this doesn't mean that we should be focusing like super like deep into what their daily lives are like. I remember back in the day, people used to like try to help you create like ICPs or personas, and they're like, "What magazine does your ICP read? Where they dream on going on vacation?" And those are not really helpful unless you're selling magazines or you're a travel agent. Like for me, writing, like business content, like people don't even read magazines, like I don't know if if I'm going after like home service professionals, I don't think they're reading a lot of magazines. So I don't want to say that we're going to get that specific, but I just want to make sure that we are if we're speaking to B2B founders or coaching or marketing leaders or other content strategists, we want to make sure that we're actually speaking to somebody specifically and not just that job title, because even within that job title, there are a lot of different caveats on what people are looking for. Because good content feels specific. It knows exactly who it's for, and more importantly, like what that person's real life situation looks like. So, try this out. So let's write down a moment your ideal audience has had recently, not a generic pain point, but like a real moment. For example, if I'm going after, like I'm going to be a ghostwriter, for example, like that's the kind of stuff I'm looking at. There could be somebody who was just handed and they're in charge of social with no support, or there's a content strategist that's in charge of creating social with no support. They have to justify content budget to the CEO who doesn't believe in it. That's a super common one. Or they're burnt out on content that looks great but doesn't convert. You're trying to create all these great graphics or whatever. But you see people doing text posts, and it's kind of like, why is text post doing better than all these great graphics I'm creating? Like, those are a lot of things that I would think about when I'm going after, like, okay, like we can create content that doesn't require, super involved graphic design knowledge. We can help show how creating content in-house, or how, getting your, employees or your whoever to create content, or how the company page creating content actually does help. Even if the CEO themselves is not creating content or doesn't believe in it, we can put together metrics and a way to test to see how that's going to work. And I'm here to support you through all that, because social media is a full-time job. It's not something that you can do on the side or between other projects at work. So like, those are some things that I'm thinking about. I'm sort of handling those objections, and I'm not just I'm not just like creating content that's like, hey, do you want somebody to like write your social media for you, or don't have time for social media? Let me do it for you. Like, that's totally fine, but we can get a little bit more granular with how we're going to talk about it. So the next step is like, we're teaching and not showing. So a lot of us default to like tips and lists and like frameworks, and like, I love a good framework. Like, we're all about frameworks here. And we definitely need to lay the basis of how we do things, in terms of if we're using a framework or we're using like a SOP or whatever. But what's more powerful than telling someone how to do it is like showing them what it actually looks like. And so that's where that like social proof comes in with it. Like, we start with a story, we put the insight, we put the data, we put the stats in there, and then we show them how to actually do it. I think like a lot of content on, on LinkedIn, especially like if it's somebody that's just really getting into creating content and they're using like AI for a lot of it. AI is good for helping you sort of like explain how to do it, but not actually show you how to do it. I think the part that's missing is that the person that's creating the content needs to have their sort of own experience put in there. So it's really hard to have, Chat GPT like write content for you if you are not actually like showing how to do it. And that comes from your own insight. So like, instead of saying you should be more consistent on LinkedIn, you should talk about, what it looks like if you post for 30 days. Maybe you should just do it yourself. You should post for 30 days and see what happens. And because we're all out there telling why we should be more consistent, but where's the proof, and what did it actually do? And what does consistent even mean? Does that mean posting once a day, 3 times a week? Like, what are we doing that's consistent? And, how are we relating that to the results? Because I can go out there and tell you to, post more consistently, and you'll have great experiences. But I don't have any experiences to back it up. So I'm just kind of like teaching you and not showing you how to do it. So, for example, with this podcast, I am not posting a lot of content about the podcast because I haven't had like an exact result yet. I haven't had a sales yet. I haven't had, whoa. Sorry. I haven't had any sales. I haven't had any, the biggest thing is I've been making new connections. I could write about that. I mean, the biggest thing is like making new connections, building relationships. I've been talking to people that are helping me craft my offers and do better things. Like those are all things that I can talk about. So if that's the results I want to talk about, then that's what I should aim this around. Like how to, it's not going to be about making money or getting more sales. It's going to be just about like, don't know where to like, are you trying to network and you don't know where to start? Here's what I did. I started a podcast. It took me an hour a week. And after, 15 episodes, I've had 15 different conversations with 15 different people. And those people, I now turn into, weekly conversations with, and from here, this is how I'm going to go from here on out to make sure that I stay friends with those people and check in with those people and whatever. I turn notifications on LinkedIn so that I can see every time they post, and I make sure that I stay engaged and I tag them and I stay top of mind. Like those are things that I can put out there that, just writing something from ChatGPT isn't going to be able to tell you. And it's just going to be a lot of teaching and not a lot of showing. So, and the last mistake, which was a little bit confusing, but I'm going to get into it, which is you're skipping the messy middle. So we love before and afters. We love to, we love to hear like, I wasn't posting at all. And then I started posting consistently for 3 months. And after that, I gained 10,000 followers and made $1 million and paid off my mortgage or whatever. But people don't live in the after. They kind of live in the middle, in the building portion, in the doubts, in the part where they've tried something and it didn't work. And I think that's what's so awesome about doing these live podcasts is like people are seeing me in the middle. Like I've started and they're watching me do all these things in the middle and learn and improve. And it's kind of like, building the plane as you're flying it, but also like putting it out there, putting the content out there as you are, creating it. I think that's a really like powerful way to go about creating content is like, how can I document what I'm doing while I'm doing it, while I'm building something? How can I document it? And we see it all the time with like fitness journeys, like people that post content around fitness, like you may come across somebody and see their before and after, like, and you kind of miss the build up part, but you're going to go back and watch like, what were they doing in between and what were they really struggling with? And the people who were there all along, that's where they really got like involved. Like somebody said, oh, I'm going to lose, 50 pounds or whatever. And they're like, okay, cool. But then they kept seeing more and more, and they kept seeing what they were doing every day and what they were eating and how they were working out and the struggles they were going through. And, them talking about their cravings and where they were losing and where they messed up and they ate too much or they didn't work out or whatever. Like that's the part where people really like tune in. And that's what really makes content resonate. The before and afters are great. But people are not going to follow you just for your after. I mean, maybe a few will, but really like the loyal core fan base is not going to follow you for their after. They were going to be there. They came around somewhere in the middle and they resonated with that. They connected. They understood the things that you were going through and the things that you were trying to build. And that's where people are going to really like gravitate towards you. And that's kind of what I do here. Like, I feel like everything in this podcast is like living in the middle. I'm asking people about the stuff that they've done that didn't work, that did work, and what they're learning from it and how they're improving, the post that flopped and what they learned and like the strategy they believed in and it didn't work and the weird discussion that ended up being the right one or the thing that they changed and how they ended up where they are. And it's like, when you talk about the middle, people trust you more. They feel seen. They feel understood. They know that you like that you understand what they're going through, or at least they can kind of like put themselves in your shoes a little bit better. People can't put themselves in the after because that's not happened to them yet, but they can put themselves in the middle somewhere. So when you talk about the middle, people trust you more, and they believe you when you say, here's what to try next. Here's what I did. Okay. So we kind of went through those three things, and you're probably asking like how to fix it. Like, okay, how do I actually create content that resonates? So here's a simple framework that I use with clients, which is the RES framework. So relatable, emotional, and specificity. So for the R, let's start with a story, a moment, or a challenge you've had. Emotion. Don't be afraid to say the quiet part out loud. What are you really feeling? What was the middle part? What was the messy part? And specificity. Zoom all the way in. Try not to be generic. Try to really be specific about the things that you did that worked and how it can work for somebody else. So I could have just started this whole episode by saying, like your content just needs to be more authentic. Sorry. But what I said was like your content just needs to be more authentic, or it needs to resonate more. And that didn't really I can say that, but I'm not telling you where to go, what to do next, and how to do it. I think I explained it well, like with this podcast. Like, this is the messy middle. This is where I'm trying things out. I'm doing different things. I'm seeing what works. Is the time that I'm currently posting working? Is the questions I'm asking, do they help the conversation flow well? What are the things that I'm doing outside of recording for the podcast that are helping me get better at it? Am I listening to other podcasts to see how they ask questions? Am I reading books about podcasts to see how they keep a conversation going? What do you do what do you do when there's like dead air? How am I following up with somebody? How am I getting people to be on the show in the first place? Like, that's a lot of the messy middle things. Like, I can just say, like, last year I started a podcast and now it is in the top 5% of marketing podcasts or whatever. That's great. And you're like, well, how did you do that? And I can say, I've actually documented every part of it. And this is what I did along the way. So I think that's something that we often forget, is like, we're so focused on trying to get the result so that we can brag about the result, that we forgot to, enjoy the journey along the way, but also just document the journey and find ways to turn that into advice that somebody else can use. So to recap, great content starts with specificity. It shows, not tells. It's not afraid to sit in the messy middle and sit there for a long time and really explain and teach and show what it takes to keep growing out of the messy middle to get that final result. And if it resonates, when it feels real. So if this episode was helpful, I'd love if you shared it with someone who's been stuck, staring at that blank page, or stuck, creating content and doesn't know where to go next. So yeah, I would love if you share that, because this is me in the middle of my own journey and learning how to create better content, create more content, and create content that actually resonates. If you want to learn more about content creation or how to start a podcast or any of the things we talked about on the show, go follow me on LinkedIn. My name is just Trevor Grimes. Should be pretty simple. But also the link to my LinkedIn will be in the show notes. And again, this episode is sponsored by Scrap EVM. Thank you guys, and I will see you next week.